Mars. Chapter 1. The Last Horizon. History rarely announces itself. Most extraordinary moments arrive looking remarkably ordinary. A sunrise, the launching of a ship, the first footsteps upon a distant shore. Only later do people realize they have witnessed the beginning of something entirely new. This morning aboard Genesis feels much the same. The lights inside your cabin brighten slowly, just as they have every morning since leaving Earth. Fresh air drifts quietly through the ventilation system. Beyond the walls, water continues its endless journey through the ship. Somewhere beneath your feet, machinery hums with the same steady confidence that has carried Genesis safely across millions of kilometers. Everything is exactly as it should be. Yet something feels different. Not because the ship has changed, but because everyone aboard knows what tomorrow will bring. You step into the corridor. The gentle pull of artificial gravity now feels completely natural. Only a short time ago, every step required quiet concentration. Now, your body no longer notices. The extraordinary has become ordinary. Crew members move through the passageways with the calm rhythm that has come to define life aboard Genesis. Some head toward engineering, others toward the laboratories. Many simply make their way to breakfast. Yet conversations linger a little longer today. Smiles appear without explanation. People pause beside observation windows before continuing on. There's an excitement aboard the ship that no instrument can measure. Expectation. Outside the windows, the stars appear perfectly still. It is one of space's greatest illusions. Without a nearby point of reference, there is no sensation of movement. No rushing landscape. No passing clouds. Only silence. Yet Genesis is traveling faster than any human vessel in history. Every second carries the ship farther from Earth. Space simply refuses to make speed look dramatic. You collect your breakfast and find a seat overlooking one of the observation windows. Earth still shines behind you, a brilliant blue-white jewel suspended against the darkness. Beautiful, familiar. Home. You notice several nearby conversations returning to the same subject. Hard to believe. After all these years, tomorrow. No one needs to explain, and every person aboard Genesis understands. For months, Mars has been little more than a point on navigation displays, a destination, a distance that slowly counted downward. Tomorrow, it becomes something else. Tomorrow, Genesis will pass the last world shaped by human hands. That thought is strangely difficult to comprehend. Every great journey throughout history has traveled toward another place where people already lived, or hoped to live. Another shore, another city, another colony, another world. Genesis is different. Mars is not where the journey ends. It is where humanity ends. Beyond it, there are no settlements, no stations, no rescue missions, no distant lights waiting in the darkness. Only the long voyage between the stars. No human being has ever experienced what comes next. Not because we lacked the technology, not because we lacked the courage, but because until now, there was always another horizon waiting ahead. Tomorrow. For the first time in history, there won't be. You finish your breakfast and quietly make your way toward the observation lounge. Several crew members already stand before the great windows. No one says very much. Then, one person quietly raises a hand. There, you follow the gesture. At first, you see only another star. Then, a faint reddish point reveals itself among the countless lights beyond. Small enough to overlook, impossible to forget once you found it. For a long moment, no one speaks, because every person in the room understands what that tiny point represents. Tomorrow, it will become a world, and beyond that world, no human eyes have ever seen what awaits. Chapter 2: The Red World. You leave the observation lounge with a small point of reddish light still resting quietly in your thoughts. It seems almost impossible that something so distant could become an entire world within a single day. Life aboard Genesis continues as it always does. Engineering completes another routine inspection of the fusion drive. Medical performs its daily health assessments. The hydroponics team begins harvesting another crop of fresh vegetables for tomorrow's meals. The mission does not pause simply because history is approaching. If anything, its ordinary rhythm makes tomorrow feel even more extraordinary. As you continue through the habitation ring, you notice something changing. The observation windows are no longer being ignored. Crew members who once walked past them without slowing their pace now stop for a few quiet moments. Some stand alone, others gather in small groups. No one speaks very loudly. There is surprisingly little to say. The universe seems to encourage silence. You find yourself pausing beside one of the windows. The reddish point you noticed earlier has changed, only slightly, yet enough that your eyes immediately recognize the difference. It is no longer simply another star. It has become a tiny disk, small, yet unmistakably round. You remain there longer than you intended, trying to imagine mountains hidden within that distant circle. Ancient river valleys, vast deserts stretching beyond the horizon, cities built beneath protective domes, millions of people beginning another ordinary day. Somewhere on that distant world, children are walking to school, scientists are preparing experiments, freight vehicles cross dusty plains between settlements. Entire lives are unfolding beneath skies that once belonged only to dreamers. For generations, Mars represented the future, the place humanity hoped to reach. Today, it is simply home, a home that Genesis will soon leave behind. Later that afternoon, the captain makes a brief announcement. To all crew, our closest approach to Mars will occur tomorrow morning. Observation lounges will remain open throughout the approach for all off-duty personnel. The message lasts less than 20 seconds. No speeches, no ceremony. It doesn't need either. Everyone aboard already understands what tomorrow means. You make your way back toward the forward observation lounge. More people have gathered than yesterday. Some sit quietly, others stand near the glass. The room remains almost completely silent. Outside, Mars has grown again. The white brilliance of the northern polar ice cap now catches the sunlight. Faint variations in color spread across the surface. Rust-red deserts, dark volcanic plains, pale clouds drifting high above the atmosphere. For the first time, it truly looks like a world, not a destination, not a photograph, not an image captured by telescopes or orbiting satellites. A world, close enough that your eyes can finally begin to understand its scale. You quietly take a seat near the window. Tomorrow, it will be larger still, larger than any human being has ever seen it, while continuing onward toward another star. Chapter 3: A Gift for Mars. Morning arrives quietly aboard Genesis. The routines of the ship continue much as they always have. Breakfast is served. Engineering completes another overnight systems review. Medical begins its daily rounds. Some crew members exercise before reporting for duty, while others pause for a few peaceful moments beside the observation windows. Only one thing has changed. Today, Genesis will leave something behind. You finish your breakfast before making your way toward one of the forward observation lounges. Mars now dominates the view ahead. Its reddish deserts are broken by darker plains that stretch toward the horizon. Bright white ice crowns both poles. Thin clouds drift across the atmosphere, casting delicate shadows over a world that once seemed impossibly distant. It is remarkable how quickly the human mind adapts. Only yesterday, Mars was another point of light among countless stars. Now it feels close enough to reach. A gentle chime sounds throughout the ship. The captain's voice follows. "Good morning, everyone. Today, Genesis will deploy the Mars Scientific Probe. It carries atmospheric laboratories, geological instruments, medical research, communications equipment, and several years of scientific experiments requested by our colleagues on Mars." A brief pause follows. It also carries our gratitude. Although Genesis continues onward, part of this mission will remain here, serving humanity for many years to come. The announcement ends. Quiet conversations begin throughout the lounge. Most people continue watching the planet beyond the glass. A younger crew member standing nearby quietly asks a question. "If we're this close, why don't we stop?" An older flight engineer smiles. "It seems like we should." He gestures toward the planet, but space doesn't work that way. He waits for a moment before continuing. Genesis has spent months building this velocity. Every second, the fusion engines have added just a little more speed. If we wanted to enter orbit around Mars, we would have to remove almost all of it. He looks back toward the windows. That would cost enormous amounts of fuel, and something far more valuable: time. The younger crew member nods quietly. The engineer continues. Genesis wasn't built to visit Mars. It was built to leave the solar system. The room falls silent once more, and somehow, the explanation makes the mission feel even larger. Mars is not the destination. It is the final gift. Ahead, another star. A second announcement appears across the displays. Probe deployment commencing. Far ahead of the observation windows, a set of protective doors begins to open. Few people can see the mechanism itself, only the result. A small silver spacecraft slowly emerges from its housing beneath the forward section of Genesis. There is no sudden movement, no dramatic burst of speed, only the graceful precision that defines nearly everything in space. Small guidance thrusters fire in gentle pulses. The probe slowly increases its distance from Genesis. 10 meters, 50, 100. Each movement has been rehearsed countless times before departure from Earth. When the proper distance has been reached, its engines ignite. A soft blue-white glow appears behind the probe, not enough to follow Genesis, only enough to begin its long descent toward Mars. You continue watching until the tiny spacecraft becomes little more than another point of light against the planet below. Somewhere ahead, it will enter the Martian atmosphere. It will deliver new scientific instruments, new discoveries, new knowledge. Genesis will not remain to witness any of it. Already, the fusion drive continues its steady acceleration. Every passing second carries the ship farther from Mars. One spacecraft is traveling toward home, the other toward the stars. You remain at the window a little longer, watching until the probe disappears from sight. Then your attention returns to the great red world ahead. Tomorrow, Genesis will pass closer to Mars than any interstellar vessel ever will again. Chapter 4: The Closest Passage. Morning aboard Genesis arrives with an unusual stillness. The routines of the ship continue, but only just. Non-essential work has been postponed until later in the day. Laboratories stand empty. Exercise equipment sits unused. Even the galley serves a quieter breakfast than usual. Almost everyone has found the same destination: the observation lounges. You arrive early, yet many of the seats are already occupied. Some people stand near the great windows. Others sit quietly, coffee in hand. Conversations remain soft, not because silence has been requested, because moments like this seem to create it naturally. Outside, Mars no longer appears distant. It fills the forward windows with a presence that is impossible to ignore. For the first time, your eyes no longer see a planet. They see a world. Ancient impact craters stretch across deserts sculpted by billions of years of wind. Dark volcanic plains spread toward horizons too distant to fully comprehend. Brilliant white ice gleams at the poles. Thin ribbons of cloud drift across an atmosphere that, although fragile, is undeniably alive. Somewhere beneath those clouds, millions of people are beginning another ordinary morning. Lights turn on inside homes. Transit systems begin their daily routes. Children make their way to school. Scientists unlock laboratory doors. Families prepare breakfast. Life unfolds across the surface, exactly as it always has. Entire civilizations, completely unaware that a small group of travelers is quietly passing overhead. The captain's voice comes over the speakers. Our closest approach will occur in approximately 12 minutes. Thank you all for making this journey together. Nothing more is said. There is nothing more to add. Genesis continues forward with patient certainty. The planet slowly grows larger, then larger still. Your eyes are drawn toward a scar stretching across the surface. It begins as a dark line, almost too large for your mind to recognize. Then perspective quietly settles into place. Valles Marineris, a canyon system so immense that it could stretch across entire continents on Earth. Its cliffs descend for kilometers into the Martian crust. Shadows linger deep within its walls, where sunlight has not yet reached. Nearby, another feature slowly rises above the curve of the planet. At first, it appears to be part of the horizon itself. Then, its true scale becomes impossible to ignore. Olympus Mons, the largest volcano humanity has ever discovered. Its summit rises so high above the surrounding plains that the atmosphere around it appears almost separate from the world below. Seen from orbit, it does not look like a mountain. It looks like another world emerging from the first. Someone quietly whispers, "I never imagined it would feel this real." No one answers. There is nothing to improve upon. For several long minutes, no one looks away. Then, almost imperceptibly, Mars begins to drift toward the side of the observation windows. Genesis has reached its closest approach. The planet is already beginning to fall behind. There's no sensation of turning, no feeling of speed, only the slow realization that one of the most extraordinary views in human history is quietly coming to an end. You continue watching as sunlight catches the edge of the atmosphere. A thin blue glow appears along the horizon. Delicate, fragile, beautiful. For a brief moment, Mars hangs suspended between darkness and light, a world humanity dreamed of for centuries, a world humanity finally reached, a world humanity now calls home. Genesis sails onward, not toward Mars. Beyond it, you remain beside the window until the planet has begun to shrink once more. No one hurries to leave. There will never be another first passage like this. Never another moment when humanity's first interstellar ship quietly slips past the last familiar world. The stars ahead remain unchanged, patient, silent, waiting. Chapter 5. The Last Goodbye. The observation lounges remain full long after Mars has begun to slip behind Genesis. No announcement asks people to leave. No schedule demands their attention. For a little while, no one seems ready to say goodbye. Outside the windows, Mars slowly drifts toward the darkness behind the ship. Already, it appears slightly smaller than it did only a few minutes ago. It is remarkable how quickly distance begins its work. The captain's voice gently returns over the communication system. Attention, crew. We have received confirmation that the Mars scientific probe has completed its primary insertion burn. A quiet pause follows. Trajectory is nominal. Another pause. On behalf of everyone aboard Genesis, thank you. The transmission ends. There is no applause, only a collection of quiet smiles shared throughout the room. The probe's journey has only just begun. Within the coming hours, it will descend through the thin Martian atmosphere. Its instruments will begin studying weather patterns, geology, and the changing climate of humanity's second home. Long after Genesis has disappeared into the darkness, its work will continue. You remain beside the window. Mars continues to shrink almost imperceptibly. Somewhere beneath those pale clouds, millions of people continue their day without interruption. Children laugh in schoolyards beneath protective domes. Scientists examine samples collected only hours before. Families gather for lunch. Freight trains cross the dusty plains between distant settlements. Life continues. Ordinary, comforting, home. It occurs to you that every person on Mars will spend tonight exactly where they expected to be. You will not. Genesis is carrying you somewhere no one has ever gone. There's excitement in that thought, but there is also a quiet sense of loss, not sadness, something gentler. The understanding that every journey asks for something in return. For the explorers who crossed Earth's oceans, it was the certainty of returning home. For the first settlers on Mars, it was the familiar blue sky they had always known. For the crew of Genesis, it is this: the knowledge that every inhabited world now lies behind you. A soft tone sounds from the displays mounted throughout the lounge. The probe has landed safely. The message is only a few lines long. No elaborate ceremony, no triumphant headlines, simply a confirmation that everything has unfolded exactly as planned. Several crew members quietly embrace, others exchange handshakes. Someone opens a small container of carefully protected chocolates that had been saved for a special occasion. Coffee is poured. A few photographs are taken. The celebration is modest. It feels appropriate. History rarely arrives with fireworks. More often, it arrives exactly like this, shared between ordinary people quietly doing extraordinary things. As the gathering slowly begins to disperse, you remain beside the glass for one last look. Mars has become noticeably smaller. Soon, it will return to being a reddish point among countless stars. Eventually, even that will disappear. You place a hand against the cool window, not as a farewell, more as a quiet acknowledgement. Humanity had built another home, and today, you'd sailed beyond it. For the first time in history, every world humanity called home now rested behind you. Ahead, only the unknown. Chapter 6. Beyond Humanity. Life aboard Genesis settles quietly back into its familiar rhythm. The observation lounges gradually empty. Crew members return to their laboratories. Engineers resume inspections that had been postponed during the flyby. The galley prepares the evening meal. Within only a few hours, the routines of the ship have quietly resumed. It is remarkable how quickly ordinary life returns. History has a curious habit of becoming memory almost as soon as it has happened. You find yourself walking through the habitation ring once more. The corridors feel peaceful. The gentle pull beneath your feet has become so familiar that you scarcely notice it anymore. Doors open and close. Air continues flowing through the ventilation system. Somewhere beyond the walls, water completes another endless circuit through the ship. Everything continues exactly as it did yesterday. Yet something has changed. Not aboard Genesis, within you. Earlier this morning, Mars lay ahead. Now, it lies behind. You pause beside one of the observation windows. The great red world has already become surprisingly small. Only a few hours ago, mountains, canyons, and clouds were visible with remarkable clarity. Now those details have disappeared, once again into distance. Soon, Mars will become another point of light. Eventually, even that will vanish. For the first time since leaving Earth, there's no longer another human world waiting ahead. That realization arrives quietly, not with excitement, not with fear, only with a calm certainty. Genesis is no longer traveling between civilizations. She is carrying one. Every hallway, every cabin, every conversation, every shared meal, everything that makes humanity feel familiar now exists within these walls. The ship is no longer simply transporting people. For the crew aboard Genesis, it has become home. You continue your walk toward the hydroponics bay. The familiar scent of growing plants greets you long before the doors come into view. Rows of vegetables stretch beneath carefully balanced artificial sunlight. Leaves sway gently as fresh air circulates through the growing room. Water flows silently beneath the roots before beginning another cycle through the ship. Nothing here has changed. The plants continue growing. Tomorrow they will grow a little more, just as they have every day since Genesis departed Earth. You find comfort in that thought. Life does not require familiar skies, only care, attention, and time. A nearby crew member quietly harvests a handful of fresh herbs before disappearing toward the galley. Soon, their fragrance will drift through the dining hall during dinner. One small reminder that even in the emptiness between the stars, life continues. You remain beside the observation window a little longer. The stars ahead appear exactly as they always have. Patient, silent, unchanged. Yet they somehow feel different now, not because they have moved, but because there is nothing familiar standing between you and them anymore. Every destination humanity has ever built now rests behind the ship. Everything ahead belongs to the unknown. You take one final look through the glass before continuing down the corridor. Tomorrow, Genesis will wake to another ordinary morning. The engines will continue their steady acceleration. Breakfast will be served. Work will begin. Conversations will fill the corridors. Life aboard the ship will continue exactly as it should. The only difference will be the direction in which humanity is looking. Chapter 7. Into the Deep. Evening returns to Genesis with the same quiet certainty it always has. The lights throughout the habitation ring gradually soften. The bright white illumination of the working day slowly gives way to warmer tones, gently preparing the ship for another night. The transition is so gradual that few people notice it happening. Dinner has ended. The galley grows quiet once more. Conversations drift through the corridors before slowly fading as crew members return to their cabins. Another ordinary day aboard Genesis is coming to an end. You find yourself walking one last time toward the observation lounge. The corridors are peaceful, the familiar sounds of the ship surround you. Fresh air moving through the ventilation system, water flowing unseen beneath the decks, the distant hum of the fusion drive, carrying humanity farther into the darkness with every passing second. Some sounds have already become so familiar that you barely notice them anymore, like the heartbeat of a place you have come to know. The observation lounge is nearly empty. Only a handful of crew members remain beside the great windows. Some sit quietly, others simply watch the stars without speaking. You step closer to the glass. Mars is still there, but only just. The great red world that filled the windows this morning has become a tiny point of light once again. Soon, even that will disappear. Beyond it, Earth is no longer visible to the naked eye. Somewhere behind that darkness, two worlds continue, turning around the same familiar sun. People are finishing dinner. Children are preparing for bed. Entire lives continue exactly as they always have. The distance changes none of it, only your place within it. You remain there for a long moment, not searching for landmarks, not measuring the growing distance, simply appreciating the extraordinary privilege of witnessing a journey that no human being has ever experienced before. History often remembers the first step, the first landing, the first discovery. Far less often does it remember the quiet moments that followed, the evening after the horizon had been crossed, the morning when the maps no longer reached any farther. Perhaps those moments matter just as much, because they are the moments when the impossible quietly becomes reality. Genesis has crossed that horizon now. The last human world rests behind you, ahead. Only the patient silence between the stars. You make your way back towards your cabin. The door closes softly behind you. The room feels exactly as it did yesterday. Comfortable, familiar, home. You settle into your sleeping berth as the lights continue their slow descent toward night. Beyond the hull, the fusion drive maintains its steady acceleration. Air continues its endless circulation. Water continues its endless journey. The habitation ring continues its patient rotation. Every system works together without interruption, just as it was designed to do. Tomorrow will bring another ordinary day aboard Genesis. Breakfast will be served. Experiments will continue. Conversations will fill the corridors. Life will go on. The only difference is that tomorrow, humanity will wake one day farther from every world it has ever known. For now, there is nothing left to do but rest. Genesis knows where she is going, and somewhere ahead, beyond every map humanity has ever drawn, the stars are waiting, one quiet second at a time.